Gilmore.
On BBC Radio Lancashire.
And a very good afternoon to you. Friday afternoon with you through till 4. Lots coming up on the programme today. We continue our Life of Grime series with pest control expert Ken Chadwick. He'll be with me in the studio very soon. News of the Lancashire Sinfonietta and a fabulous week of music coming up. And young people from Blackburn discuss the power of film. Plain White Tees, 1, 2, 3, 4 on BBC Radio Lancashire this afternoon. Now, my next guest spends his days dealing with what I'm sure he'd agree is the grimier side of life. Ken Chadwick from Harrier Pest Control in the county has to deal with everything from insect and mice infestations to house clearances and fumigations as well. It's a dirty job, Ken, but someone's got to do it, haven't they?
Absolutely true, and usually it falls to me, John, and good afternoon to you.
Also, as well, I think programmes, there's one on at the moment, it's on ITV, isn't it, where they follow the people who are dealing with grime all the time. I think as a viewer, people like to see what's in people's houses, don't we? Is it sort of does that strike you as a bit strange, really, or is that just human nature, really?
I think it's very much human nature, John. Even as I go around my daily business, as soon as people find out I'm a pest controller, everybody has a tale to tell about the rat they saw that's as big as a cat. You know, nobody ever sees a small rat. They're always as big as a cat. And I think it's one of those unusual sort of jobs that people are genuinely interested in. So it's never difficult to strike up a conversation with somebody on it because they've always got a tale to tell.
And some of these people that they show you, I mean, they go into real filthy houses, don't they, and clear them out.
Well, one thing I can tell you, having watched a couple of those programmes, is they're nowhere near as bad as the truth. A lot of them I'm convinced are sanitised for public viewing because it probably wouldn't be acceptable just to show how bad some properties do get. I know when I first started self-employed a few years ago, I had a contract with a company that handled house repossessions for banks and building societies, and some of those really were indescribably bad. I wouldn't even attempt to describe how bad they were on air, but there's one sense that the television can't get across to you that's completely missing, and that's the sense of smell when you walk into one of those buildings. It truly is horrific.
Can you remember your first job that you did?
House cleared, yes, yeah. I can, funnily enough. It was in Manchester, and it was impossible to walk on the floor at any place in the house. I'm 6'2", but I was banging my head on the ceiling because I was actually walking 3 feet off the ground. There was that much litter and rubbish piled up.
I mean, do you enjoy the job, though?
Yeah, I think it's one of those jobs that you can either do or you can't, and I'm not the sort of person who could go to an office 9 to 5 and clock in and do paperwork all day. I like to have a job that's, you know, every job is different in some way, and it's interesting, and it's a really different way to spend your life than the mundane. I
mean, do you ever go into a house with the fear of the unknown, really?
The only thing I fear sometimes is people, not the actual job. You know, you really have to. We do get to deal with some strange characters. Let's put it that way.
That perhaps won't let you into the house.
I've only ever had a couple of those because, believe it or not, pest controllers are one of the few people who can legally be empowered to enter a property without the owner's permission in certain circumstances. I've been very close to it, but never actually done one yet.
I don't know whether you saw the One Show earlier this week, but David Cameron, the Prime Minister, was talking, amongst other things, about the problems with rats and mice at Downing Street. And I think they actually brought a cat in, didn't they? But
I've heard this, yes.
The cat doesn't seem to be doing its job at the moment. They've still got mice, I think, downstairs. The cat hasn't ventured upstairs yet.
No, I think, if I cast my mind, wasn't there a cat in the days of Margaret Thatcher called Humphrey? And I think that died in the intervening years, and so they've not had a resident pest controller.
So the mice are back again?
They're back again, yeah.
I mean, it's the best solution, a cat. One of the presenters on the One Show suggested an owl amongst other things.
To be honest with you, cats aren't particularly good at clearing up mouse infestations. In fact, they probably cause as many as they clear up by catching a mouse and bringing a pregnant mouse, bringing it in, and it escapes, and it causes the infestation. But mice are like, you know, if you watch the David Attenborough programmes on television with the lions on the Serengeti and so on, they take out the young and the elderly and the infirm, and our domestic cats do exactly the same thing, and they can put a positive pressure on a population.
And I suppose really keeping a bird of prey, it does seem a bit of an extreme solution, that.
Well, I would imagine having a bird of prey flying around the House of Commons would probably cause more problems than it cured.
We'll come back, we'll chat a little bit more to Ken this afternoon. You might have a question for him. 01254 583 583 is the number to call. Ken Chadwick with me for the next half hour or so. And as I say, if you do have a question, do call in. We'll call you back 01254 583 583, or you can text in 81333. Stop. Ken Chadwick with me from Harrier Pest Control this afternoon, talking all manner of problems. I've started itching already, to be honest with you. And Ken, it's a psychological thing, isn't it? I'm sure you've not brought any of those bed bugs in with you.
No, that's it. I move around the world making people itch, John.
Yeah, that's it. Last month or so, what have you seen most of? What are the problems at the minute then?
Well, this usually tends to be a lull time in pest control. It's the changeover time of the year. The summer pests are just about waking up now. Curiously enough, I've had a couple of ant jobs already so far this year. That's ants inside the home, because obviously central heating increases the metabolic rate, and so you can get ants at any time of year. But it is looking, depending on your point of view, good for the ants this year, because over the last couple of weeks here in Lancashire we've had some pretty good weather. Saw my first bumblebee yesterday, so things are on the move, and no doubt you'll be going down looking at your own bees pretty soon.
The Rufford Old Hall, hopefully, yeah. With the bumblebees, I mean, do people get them? Are they getting them mixed up with wasps at the moment?
Not so much bumblebees, but the big problem coming up now over the next couple of months is we get a range of solitary bees. Now that's a little bit of a misnomer because you actually see them by the thousand.
So they're not actually solitary?
Well, no, you see lots of them, and they do have a superficial resemblance to wasps. The reason they're called solitary bees is they don't make a social nest like a honeybee. They each make their own little nest. They look for a little hole in a wall, and they go in and lay their individual eggs in there. So they're solitary in as much as they don't have a communal nest. But it does get sort of really unbearable around April, May time, when there are a lot of them about, because people are constantly ringing saying they've got a wasp nest, and we've got to try and convince them that they're not. So
I mean, do they swarm around? Do they, do they swarm?
They don't swarm as such, no, but you'll typically see sometimes several hundred of them flying up and down a fairly warm wall, looking for little cracks in the masonry, and very often where the drainage plugs are left out of window frames, you'll see them going in there, and people will be absolutely convinced that they've got wasp nests. And there's a general rule, though, if you see a wasp before about middle of June, it's probably not a wasp, it's a bee, because you're not going to see worker wasps much before then.
When are we going to see wasps then? We might as well be on the lookout.
Well, the queens are probably emerging right about now, just as we're talking. They'll feed, and then they'll start to build a nest, which they'll build a little paper construction about the size of a golf ball, lay 15 to 20 eggs in that, and then once those eggs themselves emerge, the queen will go in and become an egg-laying factory, and the workers then take on the enlargement of the nest. But you're not going to see worker wasps really much before the beginning of June, and if you do see them, certainly in any number, then without a shadow of a doubt, they're harmless solitary bees.
And I did mention, I think last time or last year, I came across one of these little paper things in the shed.
Yes, you did, and
you get the brush steel and knock it off and destroy it.
There you are, a trained pest controller, John.
There we are. I could come out with you on the pest control. Well, Boy Georgian Culture Club, Karma Chameleon on BBC Radio Lancashire. Text in from Jeff. Afternoon to you, Jeff. If you can, Gilly, ask the pest man, Ken Chadwick, who's with me this afternoon, the best way of getting rid of mice that are burrowing and eating his veg in raised beds. Has he got a bit of a problem here, I think?
Yeah, interesting question. And full enough, I used to have exactly the same problem when I had my allotment a few years ago, and I never quite found out the answer to it, and I'm a pest controller. The only really thing you can do is firstly try and protect the beds with netting, if that's at all possible. Failing that, if you get down to a hardware shop and you're able to get one of these the bait stations, which is a little box that with poison inside that things like domestic cats and children can't get into, then they would be perfectly safe for use outdoors as well. Failing that, it's back to the old-fashioned break-back traps. But if you're using those outdoors, make a little enclosure with some bricks and a slate, something like that, where the dogs and cats can't get in and harm themselves with it.
Right, let's go back indoors now. Big problem, you were saying, bed bugs. Are we ever going to see the end of bed bugs now?
I think it's going to be a very, very long battle, John. It might be a bit dramatic to say that they're out of control now, but my personal feeling is that they're getting that way. Interestingly enough, though, I'm in discussions with a chap at the moment whose primary job is training police explosive dogs and army explosive dogs, and he's actually trained a bed bug sniffer dog now, which is supposedly very, very accurate at finding bed bugs, because it's very, very difficult for me to find them when it's in the early stages of the infestation. It would be terribly useful to have such a dog. Problem we've got is, in order to keep the dog trained, we need a regular supply of bed bugs, and unsurprisingly there aren't many around in the UK. So if any listener wants to volunteer their bedroom for the purpose of scientific research, I'm more than happy to pop along and sort it out with them. Yeah, they just have to breed a few bugs for me.
Right. I'm sure there'll be someone out there doing that. From sniffer dogs sniffing out the bed bugs, and as you say, a huge problem at the moment, the bed bugs, to a deranged crow that you're dealing with at the moment.
Yes, I'm going straight out on that one after this show. Very, very interesting and quite disturbing. It's a little bit like Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, because this is a very pleasant development for retired people, and there appear to be 2 pairs of crows on site, one of which is a huge thing, and it's completely deranged. It's already done a couple of £100 worth of damage by stripping out the wood from the window frames. And the dear old lady's in bed at night wondering what this banging is on the second floor window, and it's the crow tapping on the window. But it's now taken to attacking cars and dive bombing people. So I'm going to have to go and sort out this crow from Hades after the show's finished.
And then it'll be no longer. Now then, also insects and oxygen scavenging. This is an interesting one.
Yes. People tend to think of us pest controllers as being, the flat cap and whippet brigade, but we do have some quite interesting scientific developments. One of which is this new technique for dealing with usually quite expensive items of furniture, something like that, or if your granny left you a Stradivarius violin and it's got woodworm. In the past, we would have used quite toxic chemicals, such as originally cyanide and then methyl bromide and things like that, but one by one these have all been banned now. But this is a new technique where you enclose the object in a hermetically sealed bag or container, and then you introduce a chemical reaction which works a little bit like the process of rusting metal, where it binds with oxygen to the extent that it strips all of the oxygen out of the atmosphere to the level where nothing can survive. And the beauty of it, of course, is that it's completely harmless, entirely green, and no danger to anybody. So very, very interesting technique.
Before you go, I've got to mention your blog, because you've started, like everyone else these days, you've started blogging, haven't you?
That's it. I'm now techno-pesty. I've been encouraged by friends for some time now to put down some of the stories and tales that I've come across over the years, and the things that happen to me on a daily basis, as I know you often read some of my Facebook stuff. So from now on I'm going to be jotting it all down at pestcontroltales.com. There's not much there at the moment, but a couple of times a week I'm going to bob down some items of interest, so if any listeners want to bookmark it and check it on a regular basis, I'd be grateful.
There we are. Thanks for joining us, Ken. Also got to mention Canada as well, because we've got a fan club.
We've got a little fan club in Canada at the moment, so your fame's spreading. Yeah.
There we are. There's Andy Williams.
You're just too good.